Can one single night change your life? Well, surprisingly, it did change mine. It started innocently enough at a friend's party, a late-night hangout, the usual Saturday night parties. But there was a twist. After having some few drinks and getting wasted, we decided to watch a movie. One guy suggested we watch porn, and that's how we ended up watching porn. The scenes were thrilling. There was a strange allure, a curiosity that gnawed at me. It felt like I had stumbled upon a forbidden world, a realm that was alluring, exciting, and terrifying in equal measure. And as the night wore on, I found myself drawn into this world, captivated by its seeming glamour and excitement. The experience was like a jolt of electricity, sparking a newfound curiosity in me. I remember thinking in my head, I'll watch it again, just once more when I'm alone. It was a simple thought, a fleeting idea that I didn't give much weight to at the time. But that simple curiosity soon morphed into a habit. Before I knew it, I was seeking out these videos, captivated by the thrill they provided. It was like a drug, and I was the addict. This newfound fascination didn't come without its repercussions. It started to seep into my relationships, tainting them with unrealistic expectations and warped ideas. I found myself comparing my girlfriend to the women in the videos, expecting her to emulate their actions. My attraction to her began to wane, replaced by an unhealthy obsession with the world of porn. I was caught in a trap that was invisible to me at the time. I was spiraling, but I was too engrossed in my obsession to notice. In hindsight, I can see that it was the beginning of a dangerous obsession, the first step into a quagmire that would take me to places darker than I could have ever imagined. But that's a tale for another time. For now, let's just say that one single night, one seemingly harmless decision, set me on a path that nearly destroyed me. It started as a curiosity, then became a habit, and soon turned into an addiction. A simple phrase that perfectly encapsulates my journey into the dark abyss of pornography. It all began with that one night, a night that seemed so innocent and fun. But little did I know, it was the night that set my life on a course of despair and regret. My once occasional viewing of explicit content gradually turned into a constant craving. It was like a magnetic pull that I couldn't resist. The thrill, the excitement, the adrenaline rush, it was all too enticing. I fell deeper and deeper into the pit of addiction, oblivious to the harm it was doing to me. But the poison didn't stop there. As the addiction took hold, it began to seep into my personal life. The relationship I cherished the most, the one with my girlfriend, began to crumble under the weight of my obsession. The images I saw on screen started to warp my perception of intimacy, of love. I began to view our relationship through the distorted lens of pornography. I expected her to act like the women I watched on screen, to fulfill the fantasies that were birthed from the explicit content I consumed. But she was not one of those women. She was real, she was loving, she was human. As I started to lose interest in her, our relationship began to deteriorate. The spark that once burned brightly between us was now just a faint glow. My obsession with pornography was tearing us apart, creating a chasm that was too wide to bridge. The love we once shared was now overshadowed by my addiction. And yet, despite the damage it was causing, I was too blind to see it. I was too caught up in the thrill, the excitement, the illusion that pornography offered. I was in denial, refusing to acknowledge the fact that my addiction was tearing my life apart. My addiction was tearing my life apart, and I was too blind to see it. I was losing the people who mattered to me, all because of an addiction I refused to acknowledge. The most heart-wrenching loss was that of my girlfriend. My expectations, influenced by the unrealistic scenes I'd been consuming, had driven a wedge between us. I found myself comparing her to the women in the videos, demanding from her the impossible. She tried to understand, tried to be patient, but my addiction was like a third wheel in our relationship, always present, always demanding attention. It was too much for her. We parted ways, the echoes of her tearful goodbye still ringing in my ears. The apartment we once shared felt empty, a hollow reminder of the life I was losing. Loneliness became my constant companion, a stark contrast to the bustling party where it all started. It was a wake-up call, but my addiction had a strong grip. By this point, my addiction was no longer just mental. It was physically harming me. The relentless pursuit of pleasure had begun to take a toll on my body. The constant friction caused by my compulsive behavior led to an unbearable pain that was impossible to ignore. This wasn't the kind of pain that could be soothed with a pill or a good night's sleep. This was a persistent, gnawing torment that served as a constant reminder of my uncontrolled indulgence. The pain was just the beginning. Soon I noticed blisters forming on my skin. They were small at first, almost unnoticeable, but as my habit persisted, the blisters grew larger and more painful. Each one was a physical testament to the damage I was inflicting on myself. My body was crying out for help, pleading for me to stop, but I was too engrossed in my addiction to pay heed. Everyday tasks became Herculean challenges. The simple act of putting on undergarments turned into a painful ordeal. The blisters, now filled with pus, made any contact with fabric a torment. I remember the dread that filled me each morning, knowing the discomfort that awaited me. Even the most basic human necessity, going to the toilet, was transformed into a nightmare. Each visit was a painful reminder of the consequences of my actions. It was a struggle, a battle between my need for relief and the agony that it brought. But still, I continued. The allure of the screen, the false promise of pleasure, kept drawing me in. Despite the physical pain it was causing, I was trapped in a vicious cycle, too engrossed in my addiction to see the damage I was inflicting upon myself. In my quest for pleasure, I had brought upon myself unimaginable pain. My addiction had driven me to the edge of a precipice, and it was finally time to pull back. The hospital, a place of healing and recovery. But for me, it was a stark reminder of the path of destruction I had carved for myself. It was a terrifying realization that my addiction had brought me to the brink of losing something so crucial, so personal, my manhood. The severity of my condition was terrifying. Blisters formed from incessant self-abuse covered my penis. Pain radiated with every movement, every touch. It was a physical manifestation of my addiction, a cruel and constant reminder of the path I had chosen. My doctors, while professional, couldn't hide their shock. The extent of my self-inflicted damage was not something they were accustomed to seeing. Their eyes reflected my fear, amplifying it, making it all too real. The treatment process was excruciating. It involved a series of procedures, some of which required me to use tubes to urinate. I was constantly wrapped in bandages, a prisoner to my own body, and the damage I had inflicted upon it. The physical pain was immense, but it paled in comparison to the emotional turmoil I was experiencing. The agony of recovery was a wake-up call like no other. It was a painful reminder of the path of self-destruction I had embarked upon, a path that had led me to this point. It was a stark contrast to the initial thrill I felt when I first started watching porn, the thrill that had spiraled into an addiction, a monster that nearly consumed me. The hospital stay was long, over 3 months of pain, both physical and emotional. It was a time of reflection and realization. I finally understood the gravity of my addiction, the severity of its consequences, and the urgency of overcoming it. I had hit rock bottom, and there was only one way to go: up. This realization, while painful, was the first step toward recovery, towards reclaiming my life from the clutches of addiction. It was the beginning of my journey back to myself. The road to recovery was long and hard, but I was determined to reclaim my life. It meant battling with withdrawal symptoms, intense cravings that could have easily landed me back in the same dark pit. But I held on. I held on to the hope for a better life, a life free from the chains of this addiction. My friends and family became my pillars of strength. Their constant support, their unwavering faith in my ability to overcome, it all kept me going. It wasn't an easy journey. There were days filled with despair, and nights clouded with doubt, but every sunrise brought a renewed determination. I began to see the beauty in the struggle, the strength in vulnerability. I was rebuilding myself, one small step at a time. The process was painful, but the progress was rewarding. I had learned my lessons the hard way, and it was time to share them with others. My journey had been harrowing, but it had taught me invaluable lessons. I learned that addiction, in any form, is a silent predator, creeping in and taking hold before you know it. It's a dangerous game of Russian roulette, where you gamble with your health and relationships, thinking you're in control. But the truth is, you're not. I came to understand the importance of acknowledging when you're in too deep, when something that started as a curiosity morphs into a destructive monster. It's crucial to seek help, to reach out to professionals or trusted loved ones, to turn the lights on the lurking shadows of addiction. The value of relationships came to the forefront too. I saw how my obsession had corroded the bond with my girlfriend, how it had pushed away someone who cared for me. Life had given me a second chance, and I was determined to make the most of it.